click the links for the Odysee and BitChute. This is about essentially segregation in films, about Black Superman. And to this, I just say good, because now we've got social media to laugh at this type of stuff. I totally support Marxism in films. They are accelerating things, which is fine. Before social media, this was kind of like a one-way propaganda street. Now we've got Odysee, BitChute, Gab TV to kind of counter the narrative, or at the very least, just laugh at the clown world America has become. The people who run Hollywood are bad people. There is a lot of Epstein, Weinstein, James Gunn's type out there. But the more they take the mask off, the better for us to awaken the normies. Social media has been the best tool to expose the Hollywood degenerates. Even when Zack Snyder went on a charity live stream, he comes across looking like a sociopath, completely out of touch with reality. He looked like he had not talked to human beings in a very long time. Think about Black Panther. It's an all-African crew. People are fine with it because it's kind of a special event. Everybody's kind of rooting for it. It's a movie set in Africa, even if it is in fictional Wakanda. But if you start to have the POC films that discriminate against the beautiful people of the light, it's going to wake people up to the fact that the industry hates them and that discrimination is accepted practice in America, which it is. Normie America will realize that if they don't have the same in-group preference that POCs have, they're not going to get work. You can't have Black, Latino, Asian in-group preference and then complain when Europeans do the same. But realistically, that would never happen in America because the financial institutions and film company are globalists. They simply would not allow a project like that. Everyone associated with it would be blacklisted. But what will happen is that these type of films will underperform. You're marketing to 13% of the country and insulting the half European, half Spanish America. The bigger picture is that you're openly admitting that the experiment in diversity has failed. America went from two separate societies to an integrated one while simultaneously flooding the country with the Spanish New Americans. Then a few years ago, it transformed into sort of a POC, supremacist, globalist-run society. And now we're moving back into actual segregation. It's a tacit admission that multiculturalism has failed. You can't say that you're preferentially hiring Black crew, excluding everybody else, and then expect everyone else to support it. They might for a few films, maybe for the novelty of it, but eventually it's going to click that these people hate them. It sends a message to the blonde-haired, blue-eyed German-American boy that he is not welcome to make films. His stories don't need to be told. So if he wants to tell stories, he's got to go outside of Hollywood, find others like himself who have been marginalized and oppressed by these filthy globalists. But even if he does go off with a bunch of other marginalized blonde people of Uggs and Starbucks, the vermin in the media will call them Nazis because they don't have enough Black trans lesbians. It will finally dawn on people that the media and Hollywood don't value diversity. They just hate white people, because that is exactly the case. If I'm making a film, for every Black, trans, lesbian, furry, otherkin, brony I hire, that means a blonde is missing out on the role. But POCs already have preference in the mainstream, so it makes sense to preferentially hire blondes and red-haired, soulless gingers to bring things back into balance. Because if the POCs have in-group preference and the POLs, people of the light, don't, then over time the POCs will be overrepresented in an industry, which is exactly the case, but now it's getting more open. Replacing Hollywood is almost impossible because the financial institutions that finance it are the same globalists. Guys have a history of doing this, creating our own thing, then slowly the SJWs worm their way in like the KY-covered dildos they are. Then they ask for representation. Then, slowly but surely, they take over and they kick out the original guys who started it. There is that picture of the comic book company, the first shots of 5 skinny guys in a garage, then 20 years later it's a bunch of milkshake girls who literally have never bought a comic in their lives. But they always wanted to work in comics and flirt with their obese, bald boss, and mostly get that blue check mark so they can whine about their hatred of white people on Twitter. If they couldn't be on social media, they wouldn't bother to work in comics. Even Mark Waid couldn't stay off social media. It's a drug to them. In case you don't remember Waid, he is a bald, fat man who called a black guy a suspected German of the 40s because Waid is mentally ill, which is par for the course in comics. Artists in general are damaged, and writers are usually suicidal alcoholics. At some point, you have to gatekeep. I'm talking about an enterprise or club, not something as loose association as Comicsgate. It would be like trying to gatekeep an astronomy group that looked at the stars on a hillside. There's just no need. The thing with SGWs is they don't want to bring more seats to the table. They want to replace you. Half the time, they want to replace you in the thing that you created. Their sense of entitlement is insane. I was reading a spurging bundle of sticks male feminist on Twitter who was virtue signaling, PMSing about J. Scott Campbell's art, and in his long circle jerk self-congratulatory manifesto, he mentioned the evil people at Comicsgate, which caught my eye because that's like complaining about, and I couldn't think of a metaphor because it's late, but it's a group of stories that you never have to read if you don't want to. Nobody is going to mail you a free copy of Jawbreakers. It's not even on the pirate sites. You will never have to read a Comicsgate story. Nobody will force you. If you don't even want to see the art online, if you blocked like 100 of the main guys, you're going to be safe. Comicsgate is some windmill that they keep going out of their way to go to. The windmill isn't chasing them, they're just nuts. But they need Comicsgate to be a windmill so they can tilt against it. Gatekeeping really isn't an issue for our side of the aisle, misspelled. It's something that happens to moderates or apolitical people who don't understand the parasitical nature of the SJW. But in movies or in comics, if you're a moderate, then you need to keep your mouth shut. Things were bad enough in 2016 to 2020, but things have actually gotten worse now. Probably because Biden is physically in office, but his 100% globalist cabinet is running the show, which is great if you are on Team Accelerate. The riots and looting keep going, and we have taken steps into reintroducing segregation. There are black supremacist militias who want to separate de jure as well as de facto, which of course most of us totally support. I'm sure Liberia 2.0 will be a paradise of Wakandan proportions, but really, no matter your ethnicity, if you're a separatist, you're probably already hanging out with your own people. But I guess now different groups will make different movies, books, and comics. And while it was slowly happening sub rosa, now it's being accepted as normal practice. I don't think the segregated films are going to be as successful as their predecessors, but post the BLM riots of 2020, I don't think the film industry is going to be as successful. People don't want to go sit in a theater with the next potential Typhoid Mary, and Euros and Spanish don't want to watch all black all the time films, and they're a big part of the audience. In a few decades, you might get white films for the 40% white population, Spanish films for the 40% Spanish, then black and Asian, etc. will have their own, which is fine, but when you're marketing to such a smaller audience, the film budgets will be smaller. Maybe online streaming services will have sections, Euro, Spanish, African. You just go to your own safe space where you don't have to see whoever you consider Untermensch. because it turns out that people don't actually want diversity of thought. They just want an echo chamber. And I'm pretty cynical, but it is sort of a bummer that we couldn't all get along. I mean, we're probably only a few months away from BuzzFeed proposing segregated towns and why hatred is healthy. I always write articles where they have these asinine titles that on the face of them are asinine, and upon further study prove to be asinine, but then they followed up with, and that's a good thing, because they're propagandists who are very, very biased. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, guys, and I will see you on Odysee and BitChute.